Part 112. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1125. It happens to be evening now. Due to the negligence of a zoo employee, a captive dog escaped. This dog is a mixed breed, with genes from other animals in his body, and is extremely talented. The incident of a harmless animal escaping from a zoo has made the news. Official release: most canines are very docile. They do not bite or yell. Please treat them calmly, be patient, and do not get into trouble. Originally, the dog had a tracking collar on its neck, but that was an old version of the satellite positioning version that had not been updated. No one expected that the little animal would escape, so the zoo has not found this escaping dog until now. Wanger has been hungry all day. He groaned and hid in the alley. It rummaged through the trash for food. However, the food nowadays is much more synthetic and tastes worse than the dog food it usually eats. But, mere humans can't even eat as well as dogs. Next to the sorting trash can, a dirty dog was lying in the corner, retching and secretly wiping his teardrops. The corners of the dog's eyes were full of tears, and its beautiful hair was thickened and stained with eye droppings. It started to regret it. How could freedom be such an inconvenience? Freedom be damned. Ben Wang is going home. Go home. Woo 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 woo. Its IQ is not yet high enough for it to understand its identity as a protected animal. It always feels that if it shows up, it will be beaten to death. After all, he escaped, right? Oh. There is actually a dog here. A young man with colorfully dyed hair and messy hair passed by with a scantily clad woman in his arms, preparing to grab a snack in the alley. Needless to say the reason, just 4 words: chicken stimulation. Then, the man and woman discovered the dog hiding next to the trash can. This dog is quite cute, the woman squatted down. In this era, only the rich could afford to keep dogs. She had only seen them in the zoo. Now that she saw the real dog, she no longer had to take care of the picnic. She couldn't help but squat in front of Wanger and stroke the dog's head. Woof. Goza was very good at it. He stuck out his tongue and licked the woman's hand, staring at her with amusement. It means nothing else. I'm just hungry and want something to eat. Tisk, bad luck. The young man originally had some ideas, but this woman ignored him, which made him very angry. I'm worse than a humming dog. The young man violently pushed the woman against the wall. The young man's sudden move frightened the woman. She looked at the man stupidly, a little at a loss. Hey, I suddenly want to play a fun game. The young man licked his lower lip. He grabbed the woman's hair and pressed her in front of the dog. Since you like it so much, go play with the dog. Brother, you took the joke a bit too far. The woman was in pain and struggled desperately. But the strength of the young man is much greater than the woman imagined. Goza was stunned. Although it doesn't quite understand what they are talking about. But Goza felt cold all over, and he vaguely felt that they were coveting his beauty. After a while, the dog clamped its hind legs and tail in despair. It made a quick decision, turned around, limped, peed, and ran away. You want to run too? The young man jumped up high. In the woman's horrified eyes, the young man actually jumped several meters high. He broke the dog's spine with 1 foot, trampled the dog hard on the ground, and ordered the woman, I want to see the love between humans and dogs now. If you don't want to die, just hum me. The dog was dying, spitting blood from its mouth. It looked at the woman in despair, and the woman looked at the dog in despair. At this moment, the two of them seemed to have reached a consensus and were surprisingly consistent. Ben Wang is going to die. Damn it, before I die, my moral integrity is at stake. Dog, in tears. It was filled with chagrin and regret. Regret for escaping from the zoo, regret for meeting humans. It would be great to be a pet dog in the zoo with food and shelter included, and breeding of the best. It's okay not to want this freedom. The dog closed his eyes. When Yulin arrived at the scene, it just so happened that the woman was crying and preparing to fight the dog. Reality is always more magical than fiction. Yulin sighed softly. Goza was indeed about to die, but as long as he was here, Goza would not die. The barrier fell and the alley was silent. Women, men, and dogs seemed to be frozen in time, motionless. Yulin stepped into the alley with light floating behind her. With lightning-like eyes, Yulin could read the identities of the two of them. Woman, amateur. Strength, 1.8, agility, 2.2, spirit, 2.0. Rating, average. Man, registrant. Registration area server, Tower of Death. Level, 18, ID, 3218. Strength, 4.5, agility, 3.0, spirit, 3.3. Rating, average. The woman was knocked unconscious and sent home. The men were executed on the spot. It only took Yulin a second to decide the different fates of the two humans. But just when Yulin was about to take action, he suddenly remembered something. I see. How a dog became an apostle has always been an unsolved mystery in the small circle of the Apocalypse Guild. Today, the answer is a bit boring. Yulin dragged the young man to Goza. The dying dog opened his eyes. What caught Goza's eyes was a warm smiling face, but the calmness and indifference in his eyes made Goza subconsciously use his last strength to clamp his tail. It felt that it would be better for him to die in the hands of a woman. This human being is such a badass. Bite its neck, and then you can live. Be good, just one bite, and use a little force, Wang. Bite. Civilized dogs don't do this. It has been trained not to harm humans. But humans hurt it? What should I do? As if by instinct, Wang bit down on the throat that was so close to him in a daze. A card floated on the corpse, and Wang stretched out his claws. That is, light. 1 minute later. Gozi had a licking smile on his face and licked Yulin's hand vigorously. So your name is Mao Mao? It's such a vulgar name. Yulin touched the dog's head and said, don't call her Mao Mao. It's an inappropriate name. From now on, you are, Emperor Wang Tian. The emperor among dogs. Woof. Wang who had just become Wang Tiandi, was a little uncomfortable with the new name. But within a few days, Wang accepted the name. Goza's head is very simple. Wang Tiandi is so cool and domineering, there is nothing wrong with him. It gradually discovered that the new owner was actually good at everything, except that he looked more abstract, his face was a bit blurry, and he couldn't see clearly. Wang feels that the new owner is very kind and will teach it various new skills. For example, stand upside down on one front paw and urinate 3 meters away. You can do the dog-licking smile for 10 minutes in one breath without getting cramps. 3 circles on the left and 3 circles on the right to flick the tail. Yulin, actually, there are techniques for tail flicking. The key is breathing. The dog begins to learn the real way of breathing. One day, it swung its tail, flew up, and spiraled into the sky. The new owner also taught him the true dog way. Yulin, you are a dog. Do you understand what a dog is? Be more of a dog. Don't be bound by the mere etiquette, justice, shame, benevolence, and morality. Forget the training you received before, and become an invincible mascot. Look. Have you seen those beauties in the cage? Yulin felt that Wang Tiandi was cowardly, so she pointed at the shaved bitches in the zoo. Wang Tiandi nodded vigorously, saliva dripping from the corner of his mouth. Superior. Yulin pointed towards the cage. Woof. Wang Tiandi shrank his head. Isn't this bad? Don't forget, you are a proud dog. You are the king of dogs, the mascot of the world, Emperor Wang Tian. Don't always be so submissive in front of me. You are no longer an ordinary dog. You need to have a bigger picture, understand? After Yilin signaled the situation is big with her hand gesture, she threw Wang Tiandi into the bitch ring. The next day. 3 poles in the sun. The staff at the zoo were surprised to find that in Canine Park No D-3, there were a total of 18 female dogs of various breeds, large and small, all foaming at the mouth, lying limply on the ground, confused and responding to calls. Yilin used her authority to give Guza many props and skills. If he remembered correctly, his other self would soon be matched with Wang Tiandi in the Caribbean trial. No wonder Guza couldn't pull away when he saw him. It turned out that it was the inexplicable sense of familiarity that made Guza choose to follow him. Echoed again. Yilin watched Wang Tiandi with his legs crossed and picking his teeth contentedly. He was very satisfied with the results of his training. At this point, under his special training, Wang Tiandi finally had a certain ability to protect himself and could not survive the trial. Will be bullied. Don't be resentful towards human beings. Yilin smiled and touched Emperor Wang Tian's dog head. There are good ones, bad ones, ugly ones, beautiful ones, cowardly ones, and strong ones. These rich and colorful elements make up the huge group of human beings. Whoever treats you badly, you slap him to death, and whoever treats you well, you lick him. This is the reason of being a dog. Emperor Wang Tian nodded as if he understood. One day, you will meet someone who is good to you. Wang Tiandi clucked his tongue and pointed at Yilin with his paw. I'm not human. Yilin shook his head and said firmly. After the training was almost complete, Yilin took Guza with her to meet the boss. At least it has learned to go to the toilet, read a newspaper, not urinate anywhere, and not embarrass itself. Acridine. The mascot? So cute. Xiao 11 hugged the dog and threw it hard. Snapped. The dog was pasted on the ceiling in large letters, with confusion written all over the dog's face. Okay, you are dignified, ahem, don't bully a dog. Yilin squinted his eyes and looked at the mere gods. He always felt that Xiao 11 was trying to find some way to regain the ground with the dog. No way. Xiao 11 said no, but pressed Guzi in front of her and asked with a smile, Wang do you believe in God? Guzi was stunned. Under Yilin's training, its IQ and logical thinking have improved a lot. Emperor Wang Tian was vaguely aware that this was a proposition. Woof. Guzi immediately squatted in front of Xiao 11, wagging his tail crazily as if to please, clapped his front paws together, closed his eyes, and looked like he was devoutly worshipping God. Good. A ray of white light fell from the sky and fell on Guzi. The dog bathed in light exudes the awe-inspiring and inviolable holy light. Yilin was slightly startled. What are you doing? You don't think that faith is just a word, do you? Xiao 11 glanced at the administrator with squinted eyes, and raised her index finger triumphantly. After all, I am a dignified God. Isn't it natural feedback to give blessings to believers? Grass. Yilin quickly used the background to check Guzi's information. Really? There is a strange skill added to Guzi's panel. Blessing of Hope. Grade SSS. Restrictions: it can only be activated by canines that are in a dying state, referred to as dead dogs. Effect: permanent luck add 3.0, in the dying state, you can get the Blessing of Hope and get the Divine Dog bonus. Strength add 50%, agility add 50%, spirit add 50%, life recovery speed add 100%, immune to most conventional negative conditions, and randomly awakens canine phantom beast species, including but not limited to Fudo, Tengu, Cerberus, Listening, and Roaring Dog. Duration, 300 seconds. Cooling time, 24 hours. Explanation: please remember, always have hope. P.S. Many times, a person may not be as good as a dog. After reading, Yilin had no expression on her face. Let me tell you in advance that I am not jealous of a dog. I just want to know. Is this also a loophole? The mere god raised his index finger triumphantly and replied, mistakes will lead to more mistakes. At this moment, Yulin began to think rationally. Can I create an army of super dogs? Can I have 10,000, no, 1,000 mascots like this? I have no other intention. I prefer dogs. You're thinking shit. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1126. Certainly. The Super Dog Legion plan fell apart at the speed of light. Xiao 11 said that once there are too many mascots, they will no longer be mascots and their standards will be reduced, which is not worth it. Worth it, of course. Yulin cursed secretly. But he speculated that the reason why Xiao 11 said such unconfident words was mainly because she was poor. Who doesn't have some difficulties? Who doesn't have any pain? Who doesn't have something to hide? Even God. Yulin rarely exposed the goddess's little thoughts and left with the mascot. When parting, the mascot had an evil smile on his lips, looking like a successful puppy. Under Yulin's care, Emperor Wang Tian entered the trial again. Yulin in principle cannot interfere with everything in the trial. Only now did Yulin know why during the trial, she would occasionally encounter beings who would call their apostles outsiders. The apostles were outsiders or, to put it more unpleasantly, intruders. Everything they plunder and everything they do in the other world will be transformed into sources and eventually feed back to 11 Paradise. If you ignore the sacrifice behind all this, then this will be a virtuous cycle. Yulin saw the growth of the apostles. He used to be one of them, but now he is detached, with a bigger picture and a broader vision. In the middle, there is a realm. While thinking about it, Wang Er came back a minute later. Wang Tiandi swung his furry tail at high speed, and a small turbulence appeared above his tail, whirring. Wang Er held his profits in front of Yulin with his paws in a flattering manner, exclusive experience gift package for dogs and sci-fi species. Grass. Your experience is obviously different from others. Worthy of being a mascot. Just when Yulin was lamenting that human beings and dogs cannot be treated in the same way, his administrator panel turned into a scarlet alarm interface. The navigator responsible for running the will of the world was using this method to issue a critical alert to the administrator. Intruder found. Event level, B. An underlying logic conflict occurs. There is a bug. Processing failed. Processing failed. Processing failed. Transfer to the administrator. Please ask the administrator to handle it as soon as possible. If nothing happens, just leave the administrator aside. If something happens, just ask the administrator to come back online, right? Looking at the warning text filling the screen, Yulin felt secretly unhappy. It's okay to be unhappy, but there is no reason to argue with the navigator. The navigator is only responsible for the core of running 11 Paradise, and does not have the emotions and will to communicate normally. Wait, now is. It is now September 5, 2121. Yulin closed her eyes for a moment, skillfully drew circles with her right hand, and landed in Hating City. Beside him was a panting dog. This scene, like a divine general with a three-eyed dog, attracted worldwide attention. Of course, he is very low-key. He hasn't come yet, but he will appear here. Yulin sat at the top of the goddess tower and waited quietly. The news of Zhang Huishun's resurrection caused a stir in the circle. A fictitious spirit-possessed weapon caused a bloody storm in the circle of apostles. Huh? Why did our goddess come to join in the fun? Wrong. This is history. After Yulin couldn't laugh or cry for a moment, he noticed that Xiao 11 and her mother had also arrived, and he ignored it for the time being. He stood on the top of the goddess tower and began to communicate with the navigator. Administrator, application for release of mandatory realistic task. Navigator, application rejected. Turned down? Administrator, then I have no control over this matter, just do whatever you want. Yulin was ready to throw down her burden and get out. He is not a scapegoat. Navigator, application approved. The navigator responded quickly. It seems that after the logic operation of the worlds will, considering that the administrator will get out, it will lead to more serious consequences. It would have been great if we had come to this result earlier. Invisible light curtains spread out in all directions with the administrator as the center. In the blink of an eye, this prosperous eastern city turned into a huge prison for the apostle. Compulsory real-life tasks are now released. Area, Tower of Death. Location, Hating City, Longwo. Mission restrictions, second level apostle. Difficulty, unknown. Realistic mission, completely eliminate the apostle, ID, and bring Zhang back to life. Time limit, 72 hours. Punishment for mission failure, 10,000 death points deducted when there are not enough death points, obliterate. Task reward, unknown, will be distributed based on the final task contribution. After expertly issuing real-life tasks according to memory, the administrator continued to look on with cold eyes. Li Chang'e, Oda Wu, Li Erpang, Ou Lele, Yilin No. 2, Zhao Yulong, all familiar friends will appear here one by one. No one knows that in the city, there once existed another Yilin from a different time and space. He was an administrator, high up, overlooking everything. He watched some people die, some go crazy, some sacrifice, some feel proud, and some struggle. The administrator was calm and untroubled. Yulin told herself over and over again that this was history. Think about it. Yulin tore off a piece of paper from the diary and wrote a sentence on the paper. He folded the paper into a paper airplane. After the paper airplane was folded, it suddenly shook a few times and came to life. The administrator Yilin opened a portal and sent the paper airplane to the other side. At the same time, after learning that the situation in Hating City was about to get out of control, Amorendi suddenly reached out and fished out a paper airplane from behind his buttocks in silence. He thought it was a hidden weapon. Really accurate aim. After being stunned for a while, Amorendi rolled out the paper airplane. There is a line of words written inside. No signature. But Amorendi secretly read the diary written by his old friend, and he knew it was his handwriting. The paper airplane said, "If you know who he is, SHHH. At this moment, Amorendi imagined the scene where his old friend put an index finger to his mouth and said these words with the most disgusting expression and tone. He tore the paper into pieces angrily and amusedly, but in his heart he was more curious about the meaning of the message that his old friend suddenly conveyed in this way. Everything went as Yilin remembered. Review the past and learn the new. He discovered new stories. Hidden under the bright line, a new story, the dark line. In the square where people come and go. Xiao 11, where are you? Mom, I'm here. Be good. Mom bought ice cream for Xioxi. Don't eat so much, your stomach will hurt. Mother rubbed Xiao 11's belly lovingly. In the crowd, the administrator appeared lightly like a ghost, accompanied by a dog, without attracting anyone's attention. The administrator sat next to the goddess. The dog squatted on the manager's shoes and acted like a loyal licking dog, squeezing the manager's legs with just the right amount of force. Xiao 11 stuck out her pink little tongue, circling the ice cream ball 3 times on the left and 3 times on the right, licking it happily. Wang you seem to have gained weight. Wang Tiandi asked, recalling the fear of being dominated by the goddess 11. Xiao 11 ignored Wang and rolled her eyes at Yilin. You have to know that you are wiping your own butt now. You are not allowed to be cruel to the navigator in the future. The navigator obviously works very hard. Obviously she knew what Yilin did to the navigator before applying for the mandatory reality mission. Yilin was non-committal about whether he was cruel or not. Although this is history, I'm still curious about why the undead Zhao Yulong appears here. Is he the same undead Zhao Yulong who bit me at the end and wouldn't let go? Yeah, of course it's him. Yilin lowered his head and thought. Xiao 11 licked the ice cream and explained generously while licking, when you came out, you opened a long channel. Xiao 11 stretched out a small hand and pulled out a steady stream of light in the void. The light is densely covered with many small dots. Actually, this passage, from artifact to reality, already means that reality can be reached at every point on the passage. But the distance from each point to the only reality is not equal. You have arrived. The end. But he fell in the middle, falling and falling, falling and falling, and now, with a pop, he landed. He happened to land on the body of one of the registrants. You know, mistake. Yilin reluctantly took over and said in unison with Xiao 11. It will lead to more errors. Yes, the administrator was so cooperative, and Xiao 11 looked very happy, so, because this is an error derived from your mistake, the navigator cannot forcefully correct it. Because this correction involves both personal error and you, the anchor point, have experienced the history. In short, although I think it is quite easy to understand, you don't have to force it. After all, you and I are in different realms. Of course Yilin can understand. He can also let the enemy fall in the teleportation channel for half an hour before landing. It is not difficult to understand if we extend the concept of space to time. Distance in space, distance in time. When Yilin was silent, Zioxy finished licking the delicious ice cream. At this time, she was sipping her fingers happily. Seeing that her administrator was silent, she comforted her. Don't be sad, what I said is obviously the truth. She patted the administrator's head. Yilin slapped Xiao 11's hand away, her eyes calm, staring at the tower of the goddess standing in the night sky. I was just thinking. Xiao 11, do you want it? Yilin sighed, I misunderstood something before. The undead Zhao Yulong once stayed with me and Zhao Yulong as an undercover agent for a period of time as Angela. I used to think that it was my wisdom that surrounded the undead in the goddess tower. In fact, it was not the case, it was the undead Zhao Yulong chose this path by himself. I estimate that it was probably when Zhao Yulong was talking about Yu Meng that the little bit of humanity that the undead Zhao Yulong had reawakened. This is human beings. Xiao 11's expression was consistent, not surprised. Old Mo Dingran was also vaguely aware of the identity of the undead. At the end, Zhao Yulong accidentally shouted, Team leader. In fact, I am very curious about one thing. Zhao Yulong escaped from hell. Does he have a chance to replace the current Zhao Yulong? Live again. Hearing this, Xiao 11 shook her head affirmatively. No, this was the result of the correction, which made him mistakenly believe that this was part of the mission. In fact, your existence destined his escape to be a farce. A paradox, right? Unfortunately, yes. Xiao 11 smiled, it is impossible for him to fight against 11 Paradise, he is too weak. Yilin stood up from the bench. The little farce in Hating City was approaching its climax. He looked in the direction of the goddess tower. Humans are too insignificant. Go ahead. She seemed to already know why Yilin stood up. He is going to witness the deceased named Zhao Yulong. Die. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1127. The end of the event. It still evolved into Yilin being pulled into the dual space by undead Zhao Yulong for a duel. Li Chang'e wears a batsuit and plays special effects under the tower, which is very mocking and attracts hatred. Flying all over the sky. He has become the spokesperson of shit in the circle, and he is worthy of being a comedian. Pan Xiaozhen was rubbing his stick melancholy on the side. Yilin appeared in the sky. He glanced at Pan Zhenji and frowned. Behind Pan Zhenji's body, several strange figures floated. After a while, the administrator Yilin shook his head, opened a gap with his hand, and stepped into the dual space. In the past, he thought that the card dual space was very advanced, but in fact it was not. Subspace is just a very ordinary thing. Now he can open several at a time, which is ordinary. After entering the subspace, Yilin eliminated his sense of existence, added a barrier, hid aside, and quietly watched the death battle between Yilin No. 2 and undead Zhao Yulong. After a fight, Yilin No. 2 has the upper hand. He revealed his trump card Bloodthirsty Catastrophe. At that moment, a blood-red light shot into the sky. Only then did Zhao Yulong associate the Yilin in front of him with the revolver maniac in hell. How can it be? How could you be him? Impossible. This is impossible. This dash. Hatred welled up in my heart. He remembered everything. He didn't expect that the revolver fanatic turned out to be Yilin. The fight to the death is over. Yilin No. 2 asked expressionlessly, what exactly is there? You do not understand. Zhao Yulong. In the air. Yilin closed her eyes and flicked her fingers. Permission dog is back online. He is using the administrator authority to forcefully close the subspace and end this boring battle. Enough. Farewell. The administrator stood high and said the last words of farewell to the dead. After the administrator made a seemingly insignificant move, the color of the sky and the earth changed in the dual space, and the subspace collapsed. The countdown begins. Now, it's not time to hit the anchor yet. Zhao Yulong grinned hard, and before dying, he smiled. He looked towards the ghostly administrator high in the sky. I see. Ha 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 ha. Sad, ridiculous, hateful. I'm just a humming piece of trash abandoned by the world. The undead Zhao Yulong understood everything. Guess? He. Before his complete death, the undead Zhao Yulong had a vague expectation deep in his heart. He expected Yilin, who was about to chop him to death, to arrive in hell one day. He will die and everything will cycle. This is a cycle with no solution. At the end, the undead Zhao Yulong understood the despair behind all these events and burst out laughing. Humanity has no future. Yes, Lao Zhao, you are the one who doesn't understand. Yilin watched Zhao Yulong die for real, and a small wave of emotions arose in her heart. Only those who have truly seen hell can understand the helplessness and despair there. In that place, countless tasks were more cruel than trials, enough to wipe out all humanity and turn humans into real killing machines. People who come out of hell are no longer living people. The undead have no hearts. Rumble. Zhang Huishun, no, or the backhand left by the undead Zhao Yulong, there were successive explosions at the base of the goddess tower. In the flames of the explosion, the goddess tower, like a goddess enduring continuous gunfire, couldn't bear it and collapsed downwards. Yilin hesitated for half a second before taking action. The law of freedom countercurrent. They are still too weak now. But they can't die here. He calculated quickly. Lao Pan was in the opposite direction of everyone. Lao Pan will definitely be fine. Then, the goddess tower must fall in the other direction. This is inevitable and there is no chance. Others will be seriously injured, or die. Yilin takes action. This is history. It's like time is flowing backwards, and everything is turning upside down. Everything has returned to its original state. The flames dissipated, the collapsed pillars became straight again, the broken mirrors were reunited, and the goddess tower was restored as before. When the ability that shocked Yilin at the beginning was now displayed easily from his own hands, Yilin was in a daze and had the illusion that a long time had passed. He had suspected that there were high-ranking apostles secretly helping him. Looking back now, he realized that the high-level apostle was himself. In the crowd, Xiao 11 was not satisfied and changed to milk tea. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. So delicious. Humans are really awesome. Mixing milk and tea tastes great. She suddenly felt that the milk she usually drank did not taste good. Sizzling. Aside. The tool's mother patted Xiao 11 on the back. Hey, Xiao 11, be careful. What should I do if I choke if I drink so fast? Mom, it tastes delicious. Mom Xiao 11 acted coquettishly, without any awareness of being a goddess of hundreds of millions of people. Sizzling. C-002, you violated the rules. You interfered with the progress of the game. I don't. It's clear that here hasn't started yet, so don't come here, Xiao 11 argued. You broke the rules. I don't. You broke the rules. I don't. You broke the rules. I don't. Huh? This authority. It's so annoying, it's so annoying, it's so annoying. Xiao 11 slapped the young woman's tool man's thigh with a pink palm. The young woman turned into a pool of blood. Cut. Am I scared? The one who violated the rules is the administrator. What does it have to do with my goddess 11? How about we talk after you figure it out? God never lies. I didn't break the rules. Not really. Xiao 11 pouted and activated the new backup as quickly as possible. After a while, a new mother walked out of the crowd in a panic and hugged Zioxy. Yilin clapped her hands, and when she came back, she was a little surprised to find that Xiao 11 had changed her mother again, and she was very filial. What happened? Yilin asked. It was discovered again, damn it. When Xiao 11 said this, her tone was completely unworthy of abominable, and she still laughed, but you know, we still have time. Everything is under my control. Yilin's eyebrows twitched, but why didn't you tell me about your control? It would be bad if it was revealed too early. One day, if you become the master, you will definitely be a riddle. Xiao 11 was stunned, it sounds good. Unfortunately, I am, paradise. It's a beautiful thought, but you still dominate? Humph, you're just a god. You are just the district administrator. Cricket. You, cricket god. Cricket manager. The goddess and the administrator began to bicker on a daily basis. Noisy for a while. Zioxy compromised and asked for hugs every day. No, the administrator is busy today and hasn't even checked in for a hug yet. Yilin took Xiao 11 from the arms of her tool mother and walked among the mediocre crowd. By the way, did you forget that you are preparing for a big job? Xiao 11 reminded me kindly. I haven't forgotten. I'll give you a hint, everything is three, the Trinity. Will you die if you don't answer the riddle? Yilin's mouth twitched. Actually, instead of telling you the answer, I hope you can understand it yourself. Xiao 11 explained for the first time her behavior of playing riddles. Understanding is the basis for condensing authority. Yilin was silent for a moment, then rubbed Xiao 11's hair, counted the time, and looked slightly focused. Forget it, I'm used to it. You suddenly changed your gender, and I doubted whether you were replaced. In addition to the big job you mentioned, there is also official business that needs to be dealt with. After the Zhonghuishan incident in Hading City, Iron 2 is preparing for the next trial. Iron 2 came to the capital to develop new skills in Molly's laboratory. The administrator waited quietly. He was waiting for the moment when Yilin number 2 would prick out undead Yilin with one needle. This is all history. It's all part of the cycle. When the administrator accepts such a setting, everything that is about to happen seems ordinary and not worth mentioning. That day arrived. In the invincible training room, Xiao Yilin gave herself a shot. Hey, welcome back, Boy. Pan Zhenji began to count down. Xiao Yilin was sweating profusely. Pan Zhenji suddenly put on a weird smile, his mouth almost split to the base of his ears. Ja. At this moment, Pan Zhenji was like a clown in the circus. Its coordinates, young man. Pan Zhenji. You are really the eternal god. The undead named Yilin left the coordinates of hell at this moment and here. Administrator Yilin came behind Yilin number 2 and grabbed the piece of paper that recorded the coordinates of hell. The password is correct. Interpretation. The numbers 1 and 0 jump on the paper one by one. The coordinates of hell are recorded and are being interpreted by the administrator at high speed. It turns out that hell exists between artifacts and reality. Yilin held her breath and opened a circle in front of Pan Zhenji. He put his hand inside. One scoop. Didn't catch it? Time to solve the puzzle? Is everything 3, Trinity? Yilin started to lower his head to solve the puzzle, and his brain cells were running at high speed, dying and regenerating. After a while, Yilin suddenly realized, its resonance. He pressed a palm on little Yilin's forehead. The blood-red light entered the body of Yilin number 2 from Yilin's palm. Add a bit. The administrator Yilin forcibly improved the mental attributes of little Yilin, and now he is still a little bit behind. He reached out into the passage again. This time I caught it. The passage is closed. He accomplished his mission. He personally connected this closed loop. If he does not complete this closed loop, serious logical errors will occur in the world, his administrator should not exist, Yilin will die in hell, and everything will end. Call. It is not that simple to invade the hell that exists between the artifact and the real. One is that it requires an understanding of the coordinates, and the other is that it requires higher authority than the registrant. Without the authority of 11 Paradise, he would not have been able to invade that mysterious place at that moment, when the rulers and gods were far away from sight, when hell collapsed. As for the third point, it is the most important. It is the resonance of the Trinity. Past, present, future. The only real thing, the gap between virtual and real, are -1010 artifact. Administrator, Xiao Yilin, undead. 3 distinct save points. The resonance reached when the spirit becomes consistent. This is the Trinity. This kind of resonance can penetrate this passage and send undead Yilin into the real timeline. After doing all this, Yilin spent a lot of energy, and a tired look appeared on his face for the first time in a long time. Now, while Yilin number 2 is still awake, Administrator Yilin sat in front of Pan Zhenji. There's still a little time, why don't you introduce yourself first? I'm an outsider. The administrator smiled and looked at the new Pan Zhenji. Chapter 159, She Came from Hell, Chapter 165, C-002. In addition, I felt a bit embarrassed to ask for leave yesterday because I had a mental breakdown, so I will give you 2 chapters of 6,500 words. Please give me a genuine subscription, please give me a monthly ticket, take pity on the miserable white clothes. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1129. A woman wearing a black butterfly mask was walking in the chaotic city, carrying a half-meter-long cured ham like a mace. Behind her, followed a handsome white-haired man with a delicate body. It's Miriam, and Merlin. Starting from the Hongmis district, they headed north, walking and eating like a tourist, for half a month. Along the way, Merlin talked a lot. He is always saying some strange things, such as that's how human beings are, having power is always accompanied by struggle, this is human beings, boring human beings, I really envy them, they can be so humble. Their competitive spirit, their lives must not be boring, and so on. Miriam did not offend him. She ate her cured ham intently. One word, fragrant. The two are about to arrive in the Northern Sea. Did he leave a lot of food in Wandering Sea? Myrian took a bite from time to time and was speechless all the way. When she was near the end, she couldn't help but ask. Merlin looked puzzled at Miriam's flat belly under her black robe. Originally, I thought it was a lot, but now, I'm starting to feel a little worried. What does he want me to do? Okay, don't be nervous, that guy didn't leave any special mission. Merlin smiled and extended his index finger. You just need to sharpen your sword and wait quietly. Wait. Don't ask me. Merlin shrugged and smiled slightly. The past, present, and future are just a mystery formed by the intersection of countless lines. You and I are both in the mystery. Great sage, please speak human words. To put it simply, it means I don't know. The great sage sighed softly. I have long been unable to see the future clearly. Yilin leaves Molly's laboratory. On the way back, he was intercepted by his boss. Very surprised. Riddle 11 asked with a smile. In general, Yilin shook his head. I personally think that you should have the awareness of you are a fat dot. Yilin smiled. Fat meat will always attract wolves, right? Xiao 11, you're not worried? This guy's divinity awakened a bit quickly. Xiao 11 secretly whispered in her heart. Haha, we have already been bitten by those 4 mouths. What difference does it make if there are a few more mouths? I hope that the more chaos, the better. However, what I didn't expect is that in Gotham City, Pangenji actually will be invaded by the Joker personality. In this way, the container named Pangenji actually contains 4 personalities: the younger brother Pan Xiaozheng, the eldest brother Bai, the son of the world Pangenji, and finally, Joker. Being able to use this method to avoid the navigator's perception and sneak in without anyone noticing is truly worthy of the Joker, who has been running rampant in Gotham for decades. Time is running out. Yilin did not have in-depth communication with the Joker. But the Joker used Pangenji's mouth to reveal a message. The one behind him is not the Lord of War, Death, Famine, and Conquest. It seems that there are also factions in the higher level game. It's because of the person behind the Joker. Xiao 11 frowned depressedly. She raised her index finger to her mouth and said SHH, and lightly poked Yilin's forehead with her other hand. A piece of cryptic information was transmitted to the administrator's backend through a hidden folder. Yilin opened it with a blank expression. In the folder, there is only one term explanation. The embodiment of trickery and lies, the Lord of Deception, Loki. Soon after, Wang Er entered the trial. Yilin is waiting outside for the return of the Dog Emperor. This trial was the first encounter between Emperor Wang Tian and Yilin. They combined humans and dogs to conquer the Caribbean Sea. The administrator Yilin kept a diary every day and recorded her thoughts and experiences. After that, Goza came back. The dog gained a lot. It deliberately showed off its increasingly developed biceps in front of its new owner and made a small Qigong wave. Bo. The dog put his paws together and pushed, making a strange sound, a bit like farting. The administrator smiled and patted the dog's head and asked, "Did you have fun?" The dog smiled like a dog. "Well, so, it's about time someone else scoops up your shit." Goza was stunned, his smile froze on his face, and he shook his head vigorously. It raised its butt, swung its tail 3 times to the left, and used various vivid body language to indicate that it could go to the toilet by itself, bathe by itself, flush the toilet by itself, and escape by itself. Woof woo woo. I won't cause you any trouble. The dog heard the farewell in his master's words, and his smart eyes were full of reluctance. Yilin smiled slightly and shook his head. Wang Er, you've grown up. Wang Er burst into tears. Yilin closed her eyes. In an instant, Yilin's figure gradually faded in Wang Tiandi's eyes. It's not just the face that's blurry. Wang Tiandi felt as if there was an extra eraser in his mind. Rub rub rub. Everything about the master gradually faded from memory, leaving only a vague shadow. It stretched out its claws vigorously and scratched the air in front of it, but nothing came out. Whoa! Wang Tiandi felt that he had forgotten something very important. What is it then? Can't remember. At this time, the death mark near Wang Tiandi's tail shook slightly, causing Wang Tiandi, who was squatting on the ground and weeping silently, to bounce several meters high. It's a guy named Yurin. I encountered it in the last trial. Ugly people often cause mischief. Wang Tiandi opened the private chat. He sent himself an address. Yilin watched from a distance as Wang Tiandi put his tail between his legs and pitifully went to find a new master. What's wrong? Don't want to give up. Xiao 11 appeared next to Yilin, giggling. The world is distorted again. There is no benefit to Wang Er if he continues to stay by my side. I must become a complete shadow, Yilin said helplessly. It means that the supervisor's insightful eye is recovering. I don't know, the distortion of the world around me is closely related to the recovery of Ling Yi's vision. But, looking back now, it is impossible for those experts that Mali found to break your seal, but why, the eyes of the monitor, can it be restored? It's very simple, Xiao 11 pointed at Yilin, it's because of you. The other you. Yilin thought for a moment, mistakes will lead to more mistakes. Yes, your efforts seem to be in vain, but in fact they are not. You underestimate the supervisor too much. Your knowledge and your desire are enough to change the perceptions of the people around you, and this is insignificant. Cognition is like a snowball, getting bigger and bigger. Eventually, it will be used by the supervisor. She will use this weak hope to regain control of the situation with the help of your wishes. Yilin closed her eyes and remained silent, her fingernails digging into her palms. Don't forget, this is history. I see. Yilin accepted the reality. All distortions are related to the supervisor. The supervisor opened her eyes, and her pupils were enough to distort the world. This distortion will be corrected by the navigator, but Xiao Yilin, who is at the center of the distortion, is aware of Ling Yi's weirdness. While recalling the past and carefully being a shadow, Yilin noticed something. It turned out that he had passed by Loki a long time ago. Stakes Junior High School. Looking back now, Yilin can fully see the true nature of that trial. It's about a fight between two monster factories. Stakes Junior High School and Hellgate Junior High School. These two underworld schools are the territories of two masters respectively, Pale and Deceit. When Yilin faced the principal's charming little secret, she accidentally mentioned tricks and lies. Yilin didn't understand at that time. Now that I understand, I feel horrified when I think about it carefully. There are too many bosses. Yilin walked in the cracks of history, re-examined the world bit by bit, and once again lamented her own insignificance. See chapter 251, Tricks and Lies. However, it can be seen from this that 11 Paradise, the original weapon that even the ruler covets, is really awesome. Xiao 11 was actually able to use the apostle to subtly package 5 experimental subjects of the Lord of Deception and sneak in the form of role-playing. Yilin was convinced by this. Etc. Suddenly, Yilin's body trembled as she thought about it. He looked at Xiao 11 in shock. In every cycle, the trials experienced by mistakes are different. Xiao 11 nodded, yes. The trials I experienced before were all artifacts, but now is the real one. Yes. So, her dreams, their dreams, too. Xiao 11 sighed, I advise you not to dash. Xiao 11 didn't finish her words. Yilin disappeared from the spot. Why doesn't this guy listen to my advice? Xiao 11 rubbed her eyes, which were red. You will regret it. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1130. The timeline continues to advance. Little Yilin returned from taking a bath at Styx Junior High School. Things around him gradually became lively. There are two more little female spirits, and there is one more gentleman's car full of dirty talk. In contrast, the administrator Yilin is full of singles. Now. Yilin stared at the chessboard. The chess pieces fell one by one. He inserted an extra clown into Pangenji's body. Looking at the location of the arms factory, Yilin thought for a moment and sneaked in secretly. Inhuman research is being done inside. Late at night, when Yilin entered, she easily bypassed all the sentry posts. There are no cameras in the deepest room, perhaps because of confidentiality, which saves Yilin a lot of trouble. Yu Meng had secretly communicated with Connor for a long time. Yu Meng was a traitor and his death would not be a pity. I feel sorry for Zhao Yulong. Yilin stepped into the deepest part of the military factory. In the dark room, the four walls were reinforced with alloy. In their view, this place was impregnable and no one could get in. In the secret room, there are life support capsules with intricate tubes connected to the central processor. This. In the darkness, Yilin had just cast a lighting technique and was about to see what he could find along the way. Yilin was stunned by the familiar faces in the survival cabin. Why is it you again? Reward. Absolutely, it's still Henry Zhang. All the life-saving cabins were filled with Henry Zhang. This scene of reunion after a long absence was so hilarious that Yilin couldn't help laughing. Xiao, help me hack into a computer. When Yilin discovered that all the computers here were strictly encrypted, she couldn't help but knock on Xiao 11's door. No time, I'm sleeping on the other side of the portal. Xiao 11 thought Yilin was noisy, so she wrapped her head in a sheet and muttered vaguely. Yilin began to threaten, I will never hug you again, you are a mere god. Xiao 11 didn't care, don't forget, there is also 10 number 2 here. Yilin sneered, then after he dies. Well. Xiao 11 was very angry and threw a brilliant super USB flash drive from the other end of the portal. At this time, Yilin deeply realized the benefits of being a civil servant. When he was indecisive, he pushed it to his boss. Physically invading electronic products is not something Yilin is good at. Of course, he can also try to simulate Orol's abilities. But at this juncture, it is obvious that passing the trouble to the boss would be more consistent with his status as an administrator. Turn on computer. Find files. After a while, Yilin found it. At Android Project, Xiao XX. Yilin found this folder plan, and the Evangelical Society successfully created a copy of Henry Zhang after trying it with the corpses of many apostles. They used taboo cloning technology and human body modification technology to make Xiao Yang truly eternal. Really not bad. In Xiao's project, there are many black technologies that far exceed the current level of technology. Yiren had reasonable doubts that Connor had brought this back from his superiors. In this case, Yilin was even more rude and made a copy of all the documents inside. Before leaving, Yilin glanced at the android Xiao Yang in the military factory, and they were all test subjects. To put it simply, artificial human Xiao Yang is still in the experimental stage and cannot yet be put into practical use. All of Henry Zhang closed his eyes tightly, in a state of cold preservation similar to hibernation. In the central computer of the military factory facility, there is also an AI program that is to be loaded into the center of artificial human Xiao Yang. It is quite advanced. Yilin thought for a while and began to consider the possibility of quietly stumbling upon future conquering knights. If a backdoor is left in the AI program, it is theoretically possible, but it cannot stop the other party's programmers from inspecting it. Even if the other party abandons it and simply formats the AI, Yilin's small efforts will be in vain. I feel that there should be a more high-end approach, the pattern should be large, and it should not be limited to human thinking. Yilin is thinking. Aden once said that you must never forget to think at any time. Wait a minute, I don't actually have to think of ways to tamper with the AI code. I can start from a more fundamental point of view. Yilin opened his eyes, and a genius idea suddenly came to his mind: can I tamper with human beings? Core data. This actually involves the field of creating people. It's not creating people like them who make iron lumps, but truly creating people. Yilin had witnessed the process of her own birth and had a deep understanding of this. Then, Yilin opened the administrator panel and contacted the navigator. Navigator, I want to tamper with the core data of Zhang Yang. Searching. The target is dead. The core data has not been deleted. Yes, administrator. You have to change even if you die. Insufficient permissions. With administrator rights, I request to temporarily open the second-level database of 11 Paradise. Insufficient permissions. She agreed. By the way, I know her very well. You know, I hug her every day and it's very intimate. After a moment of silence. Request approved. The navigator was very smart. It seemed to know through logical operations that the relationship between the administrator and the boss was unusual, so it approved Yilin's application. This is called human nature. It seems that the navigator also understands this. Navigator, your situation has opened up. Temporarily open the second-level database of 11 Paradise. The core database offset shall not exceed 0.03%. If the offset is too high, the forced tampering behavior will be forcibly terminated. Behind Yilin, ripples appeared out of thin air in the void. Hundreds of thick tubes, with crystal blue light flowing inside, poked at Yilin's back. Yilin did not resist and allowed the tubes to penetrate him. Bo. As if being pricked with several needles, after feeling numb pain, hundreds of tubes were inserted directly into Yilin's body. Through physical connection, Yilin was doing what Zioxy was doing at that time. Something happened, the more Core 11 Paradise data was being read and modified. This feeling was amazing. At this moment, Yilin seemed to be standing at an infinite height, and the world became small dots in his eyes. These small dots were densely packed and gathered into a ball of light, suspended in front of Yilin. A huge keyboard appeared in front of Yilin, with countless keys on it. He obviously couldn't understand the words on the keyboard, but the moment he was physically connected to Zyle Garden, he mastered the operation method like a master without a teacher. Permission dogs can really do whatever they want. Yilin sighed while sighing, and easily found the one the size of a booger particle from among the billions of small dots, which was the small data packet named Xiaoyang. Human beings are so small. What Yilin is trying is to tamper with a person's information from the core data level. His character, his preferences, and his will can all be tampered with at will through this method. Of course, there is an issue of deviation involved here. Suppose Yilin tampered with Henry Zhang's data too outrageously, such as changing gender male, likes women to gender male, likes men, then this if the deviation is too large, it will cause a terrible collapse, which will be a horrific distortion that even the navigator cannot correct. In fact, the reason is very simple. Artificial human Xiaoyang is a technological creation made from the cells of Xiaoyang's body and combined with black technology. In terms of black technology, Yilin did not touch him. What Yilin touched was the cell data in Henry Zhang's body. In layman's terms, he is adding a little bit of joy to Henry Zhang's DNA. Little surprises. When the time is right, Henry Zhang's DNA will move. When Henry Zhang's DNA moves, the artificial human Henry Zhang will naturally follow suit. Hey hey. Hey hey hey. Hey hey. There were hundreds of thick and long blue tubes inserted into the administrator's back, making ghostly laughter in the darkness. Pilot. 10 minutes later. Yilin left the military factory with a full harvest. He planted an inconspicuous seed in Henry Zhang's DNA. But Yilin believes that even the most inconspicuous seeds can bloom into gorgeous highland flowers at the right time. Afterwards, the administrator Yilin personally delivered the USB flash drive engraved with the word GM to Mali. Haven't seen you for a long time. Who are you? See chapter 285. Long time no see. November 21, 21. Goze followed Xiao Yilin. As soon as little Yilin came out of Greentown, she rushed to Atai City without stopping to get busy with the work of the special group. And at the same time, the administrator Yilin is also busy. He is busy with another thing. The top of Mount Everest. The administrator lay on the cold bed. He held Xia Shui's heart close to his chest and closed his eyes. Sleep. Drowsily, Yilin felt like she had crossed a single plank bridge and walked into the fog. The surrounding mist was twisted and strange, like enchanting ghosts, lurking in the depths, ready to move. Yilin crossed the single plank bridge and continued walking. Lonely, lonely, helpless. All kinds of negative emotions that shouldn't appear surged up like a tide. At the end of the dream is the nightmare. Good evening. The dense fog tore apart, accompanied by the painful wails and shrill hisses of countless lost people. The haze formed by the splitting fog strangely turned into a charming smiling face. Long time no see, Green. The smiling face in the mist twisted, and the strong wind roared, but it could not blow away the strange mist. You are wrong, this is our first time. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1131. Hu ho ho ho. I don't know if it was because of the dream, but Green's laughter was particularly hellish. Yilin suddenly missed the old bat. Green is everywhere. The end of the dream must be a nightmare, and deep in the nightmare lives Green. The Lord of Nightmares is so terrifying. Xiao Yilin in this timeline has just left Greentown. Although he has not yet obtained the nightmare mark, if his guess is correct, with Green's ability, he will definitely be able to pick up vines, climb ants on trees, and root old trees, and take advantage of the opportunity of Greentown to sneak into the only one's reality. A long time ago, Green seemed to know about illusion and reality and mentioned it in front of Lin Yi. Finding Green is easy. Just find a cool place to sleep and don't cover yourself with a quilt. When the wind blows, you will have nightmares. Yilin stood in front of the huge nightmare smiling face. I want to make a deal with you. But you still owe me a lot. The debt in the artifact is fake and does not count. Huh, the face in front of Yilin suddenly swelled hundreds of times, and the boundless pressure made Yilin unable to breathe. Don't get me wrong, I mean, pay it back together now. Yilin had a strong desire to survive and immediately came to UN. Nightmare's smiling face shrank back to a mere dozen meters, and the corners of its smiling face cracked. It was almost a misunderstanding. What a pity. No, 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 it's nothing. Yilin shook her head without blushing or out of breath. When does that start? Now. But it's more painful than hell. It doesn't matter. Green stopped talking, and the thick fog dispersed. The warm sunshine reflected on Yilin's face. Under the tree, sitting a quiet girl. She was wearing headphones, with her eyes closed, and a faint smile on her face. Her temperament was ethereal and elegant, not like she was in the human world. Yilin had a knife in her hand. The contact between his palm and the knife was covered with wet and sticky blood. Whose blood? Yilin walked towards Ling Yi numbly. Once is not enough. That's twice. If 2 times are not enough, then 10 times. If it's not enough, then do it 100 times, 1,000 times, or 10,000 times. Billions of times. This is hell. This is not enough. Yilin stopped and took a deep breath. It's not enough. A little bat tapped on a crispy slice with twisted and twisted human faces printed on it. Click, click, click. Hearing this, little bat sighed. You can increase the gear, but if it breaks, I won't be responsible. The scene in front of Yilin changed again. The dark sky and the cracked earth. Ling Yi, holding the dagger of truth, stabbed Xiaorugjiu, Jian Nanshan, Chen Bei, Huan Yang, and everyone he knew to death one by one. Some wounds can heal naturally. Some wounds cannot. Since this bloody wound cannot be healed, it will be torn open again and again, and the wound will bleed like a stream of blood until you get used to this heartbreaking pain. This nightmare will last, billions of times, or more. Green gnawed delicious nightmare potato chips in his mouth and bowed gracefully. Have a wonderful night. I do not know how long it has been. When Yilin bounced off the ice bed, it was as if she had had a long dream. His robe was soaked with cold sweat and frozen. When Yilin sat up, the ice shards on her robe fell down, salty and hard. Thump. Yilin's steps faltered and she fell onto the ice wall. He gritted his teeth and stood up. Fall again. Stand up again. The body was not damaged, but his spirit was damaged. He took the time to take a look inside the hub. It was full of patches, fragmented and miserable, but it still managed to retain its shape. The shape of the body is determined by the soul, and once the spirit is broken, it will be broken as well. As expected of, the Lord of Nightmares. Yilin rubbed his eyes and opened his palms to see that they were all covered with light blood. Yilin clenched his fists and let the color solidify between the lines of his palms. He left the snow mountain cave silently. Yilin checked the time and suddenly realized that he had been asleep for nearly half a month. In other words, he was tortured in a nightmare for half a month. Green was 6 cents full after eating this meal, but he was very tired. He knows very well that it is a difficult and long process to establish a cognition that theoretically does not exist. Yilin has already seen hell with her own eyes. Even though Green's nightmare is more terrifying than hell, Yilin still moves forward fearlessly. The more she comes into contact with a big boss like Green, the deeper Yilin's understanding of divine nature becomes. Although he and Green are quite familiar now, Yilin can be sure that to Green, she is just a more fun toy than other toys, which makes Green cherish him a little bit, but if it is true, even if he messed up Yilin, Green wouldn't feel too bad. To put it simply, there are too many Green toys. Countless and vast. Half a month. Yilin changed her clothes and counted with her fingers. After pondering for a moment, he crossed thousands of mountains and returned to Xiao 11's place. But what surprised Yilin was that Xiao 11 had some sort of convulsion today and was not sleeping soundly at home. Find the boss. It was impossible for Yilin to read the reason in Xiao 11's body. Her authority was still the highest, so Yilin directly asked the navigator for help. After automatically accessing the second-level database of 11 Paradise and tampering with Henry Zhang's core data, the navigator and administrator's common superior, Goddess 11, did not hold anyone responsible afterwards. This made the navigator silently add a piece of logic to his calculation: the boss is the biggest, and if the boss is not there, then the administrator has the final say. Therefore, this time, the administrator once again overstepped his authority, and the navigator did not refuse and readily gave the coordinates of Xioxi's current location. See Chapter 320, Anchor Point for details. When Yilin came, Xiao 11 was rolling up her sleeves and waving them hard in front of her. Snapped. She seemed to be taking pictures of something. After Xiao 11 finished taking the picture, she sat down again and licked the ice cream. Someone accidentally touched the anchor. She shook her head, but now, it's not the time, it's too early, it's too early. Should I not be violating the rules if I do this? As long as no one finds out, it won't be considered a violation. Xioxi's mother patted Xioxi's head lovingly. The scene is filled with deep maternal love. Yilin arrived at the scene at the right time, so it was you who slapped me on the back of the head. Otherwise, I'm just slapping you awake. Yilin thought about it for a while, too lazy to pursue old matters. Gu Tianqing, I originally wanted to ask you something, but now it seems there are more important things. Yilin gave the goddess a simple hug perfunctorily and hurried away. Xiao 11 pouted, a little depressed. She felt that the administrator was no longer playing with her. Itai City. Xiao Yilin rode the chimera and rushed all the way to the ruins of the unfinished building, ready to start a team battle. When the administrator arrived, the chimera from outside the world was being brutally beaten by a group of people. He watched from the side from beginning to end, and he soon understood the reason why this chimera was summoned here. What made Yilin a little bit dumbfounded was that after that year, he casually made up a big friend and inadvertently echoed the image of GM. This was really a pure coincidence. Xiao Yilin, Guzi, Yumang, Li Erpang, and others left the ruins of the unfinished building after the battle. The staff of the special team are preparing to find a way to transport Chimera's mutilated body back to the capital. A person wearing a peaked cap and work clothes silently dug into the Chimera's belly. Chimera's blood has the effect of corroding the human body, but the staff did not take any protection and took out something from Chimera's body with bare hands. Suddenly, the staff member raised his head, frowned, and then chuckled. You intervened so openly, are you really not afraid of being discovered by the superiors? To each other. Don't think that I won't recognize you just because you changed your vest, Gu Tianqing. Everything around was silent, and everyone was frozen in place, motionless. In the silent world, only black and white remain. They entered the warp. Yilin and the staff became the only colors in the black and white world. He took out a scroll and stuffed the object into the scroll. The scroll twisted, as if it came to life, tearing open the subspace and drilling into the scroll. In the gap. Snort. Yilin stretched out her hand, ready to stop, but after Gu Tianqing sent the object away, she stood calmly watching the administrator take action, stroking her hair. I am honoring the deal between you and me. I suggest you don't intervene, otherwise, there will be consequences at your own risk. Hearing this, Yilin made a move and watched the scroll disappear. Gu Tianqing smiled, you know me, although you don't believe me, but now we have common interests. After all, once we know your authority, who dares to mess with you easily? Yilin closed her eyes to hide the light flowing in her pupils. Gu Tianqing guessed Yilin's plan, smiled and shook her head. Don't waste your energy, you can't deduce it? Because he sent me a courier, but... Gu Tianqing pointed to the night sky above her head. Yilin opened her eyes and found that she couldn't figure it out. All clues have been erased, and Gu Tianqing used the ritual to smuggle an unknown thing in from outside the world. Gu Tianqing also seemed to know that Yilin still had concerns about whether to kill herself. So now he seems a bit arrogant. Shhh. Gu Tianqing lowered the brim of his hat and threw a card towards Yilin. Yilin caught it. Surprisingly, this was not a tarot card, but an ordinary cardboard card. 3 words were scrawled on it, Kanyang City. The words were followed by a smiling face that deserved a beating. For now, I might as well give you tarot cards. Yilin curled her lips, expressing disgust. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1132. Dealing with the Riddler is a waste of brain cells. As soon as Yilin took the card with a look of disgust on his face, Gu Tianqing's vest suddenly twitched and he fell to the ground, as if he had touched something. Yilin didn't need to step forward to check, but she could tell that the staff member who was so arrogant just now turned into a corpse in the blink of an eye. Just like the ancient mythology teacher, Gu Qingtian. In the darkness, Yilin's eyes narrowed and he burned the cardboard card to ashes with a snap of his fingers. Burned. It would be a sin to keep this thing in the world for 1 second longer. At this time, no one knows that at the end of the Chimera incident, the future Death Knight and the administrator of the world had a brief meeting at this moment and here. Ching Cheng. Ah la la, Xiao 11, the administrator is back. The young woman opened the door to Yilin and sent her warmth. Understood. Xiao 11 was facing the mirror and tying herself into braids. She didn't look back and said something with her back to Yilin. Skull hurts. Yilin rubbed his eyebrows. It's normal. Xiao 11 shook her braid with satisfaction and replied perfunctorily. Yilin understands mere goddesses. Usually as soon as I enter the door, the goddess wants to hug me. For the first time today, I didn't make any excessive demands. Something was obviously wrong. After a moment of silence, Yilin popped up a file towards Xiao 11. Apply for intrusion permission. Coordinates, beta -4321 -1253 -1234 -9873. Xiao 11 shook her braid suddenly. Actually, Xiao 11 turned her head. She had always behaved heartlessly, with a trace of sadness appearing in her watery eyes. You and I both know very well that your invasion this time cannot change anything. Yilin nodded calmly. I have to give it a try, because at the end, for me, there is a blank that I have never understood. I feel that since Aiden, in the form of a missing body, has personally transformed, that he gave me the coordinates of the world, and I always felt that he wanted me to go there and do something. Then go ahead, my administrator. Xiao 11 nodded and waved her hand in agreement. Application passed. Please arrive at the invasion passage. Coordinates of upcoming invasion, beta -4321 -1253 -1234 -9873. With the approval of the boss, Yilin was able to use the function of 11 Paradise to invade other worlds as an administrator. After 1 hour, Yilin came to the grey fog area and stood in front of the Tower of Death. The grey mist contains the power of death. Yilin has built more than 10 layers of defense on the surface of her body to resist the invasion of death. The little red bat stood happily on the administrator's shoulder. Yilin glanced at Green. You shouldn't be discovered, right? Calm down. Green licked his lips. His pink tongue was moist, making the bat look a little hungry. Don't forget, I haven't given you the nightmare mark yet. In front of the administrator and the little bat, the grey giant tower looked like a high wall reaching into the sky. Yilin put her hand on the giant tower. Buzz buzz. He felt the whole tower shaking. But obviously, the tower remained motionless, and it was not the Tower of Death that was shaking, but him. From Yilin's palm, illusory lights connected with the giant tower. After a moment's pause, the grey giant tower without any texture in front of it tore open a dark door out of thin air. Yilin stepped into the door without any hesitation. Inside. In Yilin's memory, this was the first time that he entered the invasion channel in this way. In the past, apostles were connected to the Tower of Death through the Mark of Death, omitting this process. Even though it's not that convenient, Yilin feels it's more ritualistic now. Good. A virtual keyboard appeared in front of Yilin, and Yilin quietly entered the coordinates of Urano's world. Actually, you can invade by yourself, right? When the streamer of the transmission channel started to operate, Yilin asked casually. Cannot. Green shook his head. Generally speaking, gods do not give birth to nightmares on their own. In particular, those who know the existence of nightmares will deliberately avoid them unless they can't help it. No, Yilin was stunned. What about them? No, you. What Yilin meant was that he was referring to the Dominator level, which is a level higher than God. Of course not. Green replied matter-of-factly, without hiding anything. Yilin found it even more difficult to understand. So, isn't your power useless? After being stunned for a moment, Green couldn't tell whether to laugh or cry. She rolled up her wings and poked Yilin's forehead hard. Do you imagine the fight between us and us as a fight between you lower creatures? If not. The situation is really small. Green sighed. his little eyes full of disdain. The situation is too small. So, what do you think of us? This question is on point. What level is Dominator? It was indeed difficult for Yilin to understand. It stands to reason that if the world is a ship, then God is the captain, and God is the master of the world. So, can the master be understood as the captain of a fleet? Are there thousands of gods under the command of the Lord? The mighty world warship conquers the stars and the sea? Yilin imagined that scene and always felt that something was wrong. When Yilin expressed his understanding, Green began to talk about the pattern again. Xiao xiao xiao. Let me tell you simply, we are immortal. Yilin's face darkened. Green smiled, we are the incarnation of concept. All the lives floating on the origin sea, a certain concept they can understand. When the impression of this concept is materialized, it is us. We are the understanding, concept, totem, belief, and aggregation of consciousness of all living beings. We are everywhere and immortal. Don't use mere human understanding of power shallow concepts to measure us. And you misunderstood one thing. Green raised his right wing, curled his fingers, and laughed. It's not because I control the nightmare that I become the Lord. Rather, I am the nightmare. Of course, now it's impossible for you to understand, you're still far away. The two were talking about what kind of existence a mere master was. The high-speed flowing light beam under Yilin's feet was like a fully automatic conveyor belt, transporting Yilin to the end of the light. This is the cool thing about 11 Paradise. As long as you enter fixed coordinates, you can invade other people's worlds. Of course, Yilin estimated that this invasion must have established conditions or upper limits, otherwise it would have gone against the grain. Can you enter and leave the boudoir of the masters at will? Yilin glanced at Green expressionlessly. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited. However, Yilin would not be foolish enough to show such strange emotions in front of Green. After coughing twice, in the light of the teleportation, Yilin thought of another thing. When he was free at the moment, he mentioned it casually, I have something, it's always been weird. What happened in Artifact is happening again in the real one, you guys, ahem, I mean your group, don't you think it's weird? Is that so? Green asked in confusion. Sometimes when Yilin and Green were talking, they were in different situations, and there was a certain degree of error in their understanding. This is the so-called generation gap, a deep gap caused by the difference in dimensions. After a while, Green compared his feelings with his own, and after trying to lower his thinking pattern, he finally understood and suddenly realized, you want to ask why we can't notice it, right? Yilin nodded. It's very simple. Green rolled up his wings, with a glowing chestnut floating on them. There are two people here. Two light beings appeared in Yilin's field of vision. Someone quietly turned one of the people into a dog. Bo. People turned into dogs. Some masters always like to use dogs to lift chestnuts. You saw it, right? Green asked. What if? Then let me lift this chestnut bigger. Green waved his wings, and the number of little people in Yilin's field of vision turned into 1,000. Green swung, one of the guys turned into a dog. The dog was drowned in the sea of people. Yilin understood, I understand, your pattern is too big, and it is difficult to notice small changes. Green frowned and retorted dissatisfied, no, it's not difficult, but lazy. You really can't speak. Having said that, after Green simply explained using chestnuts, Yilin quickly understood. The sudden and outrageous change of a living person into a living dog may seem very eye-catching in a small group, but if the base of this group is enlarged, it is completely unworthy of mention. No wonder it took so long for Xiao 11 to use the artifact and the Lord and Gods. It turns out that Xiao 11 is the most experienced old man. Correct. At this time, Green curled his left wing into a fist shape and slapped his right wing hard. If I guess correctly, Your Xyl land invasion method this time is a bit different from the usual bridging. Bridging? Yilin was stunned. While Green was speaking, a small blue dot appeared at the end of the streamer channel. Sexy Green continued to lift chestnuts, his right wing shrunk into an O shape, and his left wing pointedly pointed into the O. After fully indicating with body language, Green said interestingly, "Hey, U-11 Paradise, the registrant's invasion is to use a hidden invasion channel to form a fixed bridge channel with the world ship, and secretly send the registrant into it. But now, what you are using should be a temporary modification of the maintenance channel for invasion. Channel, without forming a bridge relationship, you will be sent to the vicinity of the target coordinate point." What's the meaning? Yilin's expression changed, and Green's tone gave Yilin a bad premonition. To put it simply, Green grinned and smiled happily, "You will directly bathe in the source." Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1133. Yiren understands the personality of the Master. These creatures have one thing in common, the Riddler. There is no use blaming Green now, nor dare. Yilin quickly made preparations for crash landing. Call. In an instant, the blue light spot in the distance suddenly enlarged in Yilin's field of vision. When Yilin came back to his senses, he was already bathed in a blue ocean. Ocean. Wrong. Yilin looked at the magnificent scene in front of him in shock. He had no words to describe the scene in front of him, blue thin lines intersecting in the endless space. Each blue light, if you look carefully, it can be found that they are composed of the purest 1 and 0. Each of these thin threads is smaller than a hair and comparable to a human nerve. Yilin looked back and saw a thick tube that could accommodate several people passing through, extending from the end of deep space, leaving an entrance through which he and Green could not peek inside. A few seconds ago, he and Green had passed through this strange entrance. Walk out. The blue sea of light completely submerged Yilin and Green. In addition to the scene in front of him completely refreshing Yilin's concept of the sea, what surprised him even more was that in the ocean of origin, there was nothing he recognized. He knew the concepts of air, gravity, and buoyancy, but he was just floating for no reason. Just when he was about to ask Green what was going on, Yilin looked back and was immediately confused in the sea of origin. Green was actually swimming comfortably, on his back. How the hell can you do backstroke with a bat shape? Just when he was about to complain, Green spread his legs, turned over, and expertly shifted into a breaststroke position, feeling free and easy. Yilin. He was about to curse, but found that the words he spoke turned into bubbles and spit them into the sea. Bubbles. Yilin was keenly aware that as the bubble spit out, a small corner of his mind seemed to be dug out. A corner of no importance that would hardly be noticed by Yilin. He felt like he'd forgotten something, but it wasn't too important. What happened? Did I throw up some of my little knowledge? The moment she understood this fact, Yilin felt her scalp tingle slightly. He seemed to understand something. When he looked down, he found that the water in the original sea was pervasive, and the blue stream of light, as thin as a thread, passed through the surface of his body without any hindrance. Every time a stream of light passed through, a little white thing was taken away from his body. In order to see clearly, Yilin decisively entered the analytical vision mode. At this time, under the subtle vision, he was finally able to see clearly what was being taken away. When the thin threads were passed out, there would be some kind of substance in his body, which would last for less than a second. In an instant, it was quickly decomposed, reassembled into a spiral structure, and merged into the source sea. Yilin closed her mouth, held her breath, and calmly drew an SOS trajectory in the water. Hopefully Green understands this international distress signal. Ah, I almost forgot about you. Green actively and flexibly changed various postures in front of Yilin, and the snickering voice suddenly sounded in Yilin's mind, being able to do without any aviation equipment. There are only three categories of beings roaming freely in the source sea: entropy, disordered hunters, and us. As for you, the hybrid, you're a little less interesting and can barely be considered the fourth category. Yulin always sounded like Green was swearing. He quickly crossed out SOS again. During this short conversation, he, bathed in the source sea, was slowly being decomposed, and his core data was being lost bit by bit in a way that Yulin could not understand. Kill. Corrosion. Erosion. Wipe out. Destroy. Concepts flashed through Yulin's mind one after another, but these concepts that humans could understand were denied by Yulin one by one. No, neither. This loss of core data is more like deletion. Yes, he is being deleted. Although this process is slow, if it continues like this, he will be erased. Of course, Green will not just watch Yulin be deleted, which is why Yulin takes Green with her wherever she goes. Although Green is not kind-hearted, at least there is a strange feeding and trading connection between him and Green. He was tortured to death in the nightmare, broken and repaired, and this kind of pain struggling in the nightmare, which is an important part of Green's delicious snacks. For this reason, Green would not let Yulin send it easily. Green swam happily while instructing Yulin how to swim. It is actually not difficult to swim in the source sea. The source sea is where all information gathers. There are only two ways to prevent it from being assimilated and deleted. The first is to try to understand the information passing through the body, and the second is to throw out sources of immeasurable magnitude and actively send them into the source sea. Green obviously uses the second one. Understand. Why do I need to learn to solve problems first if I want to learn swimming? Yulin thought Green's statement was ridiculous, but he still tried to understand from a microscopic perspective the various information brought by the streams passing through the body. Countless garbled codes appeared in Yulin's field of vision. Most of these informations were useless and lengthy. Yulin reorganized these strange information and formed formulas that he could understand. He began to swim forward. Decomposition occurs more slowly. Yunhai began to give Yulin new feedback. The lost core data returned. Not only that, he vaguely felt that he had absorbed a little bit of understanding about missing from the source sea. Pa. When Green saw Yulin's expression, she easily guessed that this kid was definitely addicted to bathing, and was ready to use the warm missing she had just understood to add bricks to her throne. She slapped Yulin's face. Face, will you really lose the anthracene if you soak it any longer? Green's words reminded Yulin of the fantasy creature courier chimera that crossed the source sea and broke into 11 paradise from outside the world by summoning. When it appeared, it was also accompanied by the source. The blue light showed that the body was decaying, and when it appeared, it was already full of blood. Thinking of this, Yulin nodded and no longer missed it. He felt it for a moment and realized that he had just swam for a while, and his spiritual energy value had been reduced by half, which was a lot of consumption. Yulin was secretly frightened by this, but at the same time she also kept an eye on it. If you can't take a long bath, then, how about taking a bath from time to time? Come in for a dip, learn something, then rush out, come in again, go out again, in and out, back and forth, jumping sideways repeatedly. Wouldn't it be perfect? While Yulin was weighing the feasibility, cost-effectiveness, and operability of the repeated horizontal jump bath plan, Green swam in another direction. Yulin quickly followed. In the depths of the Origin Sea, the shadow of a giant beast loomed. In front of the size of the giant beast, Yulin is like a piece of dust, a cell, or a leaf. The giant beast has a long neck, and its size cannot be described by volume in the conventional sense. With hundreds of slowly swaying wings, the closer Yulin and Green got to the giant beast, the less they could see its entirety. This is the first time Yulin has glimpsed the existence called world outside the world. Yulin truly understands intuitively what the world is a ship means. How do we get in? Yulin couldn't speak. After a few seconds, Yilin's agitated mood calmed down. He had an idea in his mind, like sending a private message to Green. Wait a minute. Yilin turned her head and found that Green had a white scarf wrapped around his little head at some point, and he was holding a red mini shovel in his hand. The small broken shovel looked like a toy, but Yilin couldn't tell the material of the shovel at a glance. It was like a flowing liquid, changing its shape every moment, with miniature human faces attached around the shovel. Ignoring the mystery of the shovel and Green's bad posture, her current outfit makes her look like a contractor at a construction site. Yilin hesitated again and again, giving up the tempting idea of borrowing your magic shovel to play with, and quietly watched Green swinging the shovel, tapping here, hitting there, digging and digging. From a distance, Green's current behavior looks like a louse tickling a monster. Huh, Green's furry ears stood up as he turned his back to Yilin and swung the shovel. She seemed to hear Yilin's thoughts. Master Green's swinging shovel is so cool. Yilin got rid of distracting thoughts and thought silently in her heart. Green's perked little ears dropped again. Sure enough, has it entered a closed state? Hey, it's not difficult, look at the shovel. Ding 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 ding. Bo. On the surface of the giant beast's body, there was a shimmering scale, and a hole was dug out by Green. I opened another maintenance lane to go in. Green didn't seem to have the consciousness of accidentally smashing a big hole in someone else's world. She put away the shovel with satisfaction and waved to Yilin, telling him to hurry up and get going. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1134. Thunder rumbled. Heavy rain showers. The wind howled. There are crisscrossing ravines. In the boundless night, the world in front of us is dim and dull. What appeared in front of Yilin was a familiar and desperate world. No people, no hope, no light. This is the end. This place suffered destruction and all life was devastated. The earth is burning with eternal black flames, and there are horrible ravines, as if the earth has been torn out by some huge creature with scars that cannot be healed. Collapsed high-rise buildings, twisted and erected bridges, and Jedi covered with war ashes. The blood-stained long river, the melting snow-capped mountains, the broken mountains, and the ocean filled with floating bones. Behind Yilin, the entrance knocked out by Green was slowly repaired and closed again. Yilin and Green moved in the air. He has been here. He was here and experienced an unforgettable journey. He was here and had a vigorous story. Here. It is the reality of despair under the clouds. Cloud. Yilin thought of this, looked up, and found something wrong. If he remembered correctly, when he arrived here, there were endless clouds like pot lids in the sky, but there were no clouds here. Yilin started to breathe. There were dust visible to the naked eye floating in the air. Even with his current physique, he would not die even if he did not breathe for a while, but doing so would make him more like a living person, right? He began to lead Green aimlessly, no, it was Green who led him around a desolate land. Green's wings are like living guides, turning one way and the other from time to time. Although Green didn't say the words sexy Green will guide you online as a navigation should, the behavior of turning her wings gave a clear hint, she was guiding Yilin in a certain direction. Yilin flew for a long time under the guidance of Green navigation. About 2 hours. Finally. In the ruins, a girl's laughter came out. She was counting quietly. Every once in a while, she counts out a number. No problem. The weird atmosphere is not a problem either. But the problem is that the number of girls is a bit high, in the hundreds of millions. Yilin approaches. In the relatively flat open space of the ruins, a white-haired girl wearing a white dress and bare feet was squatting there, with her back to the sky. In front of the girl, there were many dolls, each of which looked a bit cute. Yulin saw them who had left a deep impression on him from a distance. The sword-holding male god who is as cold as an iceberg. Engineer holding a staff. The dean's wife whose charm is still there. The dog-headed boy in red. The cold and arrogant old blacksmith. High-powered combatants of Division 12. The stupid dragon. A girl in a Maiko costume. The enchanting amateur landlady. The sinister high priest. An ordinary adventurer with a long arrow stuck in his knee. Cute monsters with different shapes. The lonely and empty white-haired female wolf. A gorgeous young mermaid woman. In this world, only she is left. And the dolls in front of me. She was obviously amusing herself, lowering her head and thinking quietly in front of the lifelike dolls. Yeah, there are guests visiting Anthracene. Please stop making noise and be quiet. When Yulin and Green came behind the girl smiled and softly shushed the dolls. She patted the dress on her body, stood up, put her hands behind her back, and looked at the visitor timidly. At first glance, the girl's facial features make people feel that they are very delicate, like a Barbie doll coming out of a movie, impeccable. But when he looked closer, Yulin felt a mysterious feeling. She has the same facial features, but in just 10 seconds, her impressions change rapidly. One moment she is a pretty girl, the next she is a sweet and skillful young woman, the next she is a depressed widow, and the next she is dying. Old woman. She has quantum facial features. It's Auranos. Auranos looked at Yulin quietly, and finally his eyes fell on the little bat on Yulin's shoulder. Good evening. Green said hello normally and flapped his wings. Ah. It's Nightmare, sir. The girl recognized this look of grim and immediately panicked. After a blink of an eye, Uranus didn't see any movement, and the barren land turned into a field of flowers. A small garden with green birds and fragrant flowers. On the ground, a group of white pigeons took off happily. The figures of the white pigeons flapping their wings were like beautiful musical notes. In the center of the small garden, there is a round table and 3 exquisite stools. She turned around and put on a pure white and elegant princess dress. As expected of a god, dressing up is like having fun. Please take a seat, distinguished guest. Welcome to my... The girl was about to introduce herself, but after a pause, she quickly lowered her head dejectedly, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. My broken ship. Hee, it doesn't matter. I'm a little different from them. I'm not picky about the eating environment. By the way, have a cup of casual, add a spoonful of missing about life and death, add half a spoonful of twisting and turning, and finally add a little bit of reunion of life and death. Thank you. Green stood on the table with high spirits, put his wings on his waist, and began to order without politeness. Yulin stared at Green with strange eyes. Green suddenly understood and snapped his fingers with his wings. By the way, he is paying off his debts now and can't afford your tea. Green pointed at Yulin and declined directly for Yulin. After receiving the girl's reception, it stretched out its wings and flapped in front of it a few times. A little bit of blue light floated along the tips of Green's wings to the girl. Payment completed. Thank you, sir. I don't know how much Green gave, but the girl's expression was like a treasure. She turned her back to the two of them and worked mysteriously for a while. Immediately afterwards, a cup of tea that was red with blue light and a strange phantom halo on the surface was pushed in front of Green. This cup seems to be the add whatever you want. Green ordered not long ago. Another glass. Please give it to you. The girl made another cup for Yulin. Sorry, because you exude a strong smell of missing. Is it snow? I took it upon myself to brew a cup for the guest. It's called Snow's Embrace. Use it with caution. The tea is transparent, just like a cup of ordinary water, with a faint chill on it, like a cup of cold brewed tea. You know each other. Yulin stared at the glass of water. Green beside her had already raised her paws and drank it. Her slightly squinted eyes and trembling fur showed that she knew how to enjoy herself. A bat that is both elegant and unbeatable. Green, a long time ago, this place was a prosperous place, dotted with girlish romance. Well, according to your understanding, this is the tea restaurant we like to visit. It's quite good. I've been there several times. Later, it was a pity. The girl lowered her head and twisted her skirt uneasily with her fingers. Yilin raised the white round-mouthed teacup and took a sip. The clear and transparent water slid down the throat, but before it stayed in the mouth for too long, it evaporated completely. At this moment, he felt as if someone was hugging him behind him, as gentle as water and as cool as snow. "Senior brother." A voice that sounded like someone was talking in sleep came to Yilin's ears. Bang, Yilin's whole body was shaken, and the teacup fell from his hand on the table. He closed his eyes hard, greedily feeling the familiar hug feeling. After an unknown period of time, Yilin opened his eyes again, calmly thank you to the girl. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Auranos. This cup of snow embrace is really delicious. Call me Xiao, 11's administrator. The situation here is somewhat different from Yilin's imagination. The purpose of his coming here, whether it was to make up for his regrets or to come to the real to take a look at Deng and the others, Yilin came with determination, but this clear cup of snow embrace, moisturizer quietly dispelled Yilin's heavy determination, leaving Yilin in a hurry, not knowing what to say to Xiao. In this ruined world, with one ruler, one god, and one administrator, Yilin is at the lowest level. But the combination of these three makes Yilin feel that her fortunes after becoming an administrator are becoming more and more fantastic. The layout is a bit incredible. He can sit down with gods and even masters to drink tea and brag. Who would believe it? During my restless sleep, Xiao Wu smiled slightly and took the initiative to speak. I had an interesting dream. In that dream, there was an invincible warrior, with a loyal dog, and teammates who never left him. They were traveling, taking risks, going through hardships, and destroying the terrible evil god. I want to see that beautiful dream with my own eyes. Wrong. A surprised expression appeared on Yilin's face. You mean, you saw the artifact of Xile Paradise? Yes, Your Excellency. The brave Xiao changed his face quickly and turned into a gentle face of the young woman next door. With a bit of playfulness, he winked at the administrator. Wrong. You mean, you haven't made that world on the clouds yet? No, Yilin suddenly said, that's your nightmare. That world was born because I brought green here. Was it my arrival that led to your death? Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1135. Although Yilin did not witness Xiao Wu's death at the end of the world of Auranos, he vaguely guessed this unacceptable ending afterward. So much so that this place has almost become his heartache, otherwise Deng would not have become Yilin's missing. When Yilin said this, Xiao didn't look surprised. He smiled and shook his head. God will not die, he will only retrospect. Yilin's face darkened. The current situation is a little different from what he imagined. Deng gave him the coordinates. It turned out that it was not for Yilin to come to save this place, nor for Yilin to be the witness, but, to personally direct everything that happened in the artifact, arrived as promised. It's here. There is no world above the clouds, no magnificent and colorful sky, no 7 divine beasts, no large engineering towers, no land of the god of fire, no hot springs. This place is completely empty. Here, it hasn't started yet. And the arrival of him and Green was just to facilitate all of this. Yilin's mood at the moment was very complicated. He knows Xiao Wu's ending and the ending of this world. Perhaps Xiao Wu also learned about this ending from the deduction of artifacts. But she still welcomed them without any regrets and made him a cup of snow embrace. Compared with Yilin's complicated mood, Xiao Wu seemed to be in a happy mood. Her face was filled with the expression of a girl who is about to meet her male netizen. She was looking at Yilin and Green with 3 parts of anxiety, 3 parts of shyness, 3 parts of uneasiness, and 1 part of eager anticipation. My longing, your lord's nightmare, 11's paradise, and you, will definitely be able to recreate those dreams, those very adventurous dreams. Yilin, so, this is my mission here. To create a dream. Xiao smiled happily, his eyes curled into crescent moons. Wait a minute, Green frowned, I haven't agreed yet. She took out a calculator the size of a fingernail from somewhere, flapped its wings and danced like the wind, and pressed it for a while. Then he shook his head and said, this won't work, it will be a big loss. The corner of Yilin's mouth twitched. Why didn't I realize that you were so young before? Ahem, are you planning carefully? He wanted to say stingy Bala, but changed his mind. This is the pattern, you don't understand. Green flapped her wings, and the pink Geo stepped on Yilin's head. She told Yilin to shut up and stop talking. Her red eyes stared at Uranus, your source is not enough. I'm willing to pay for everything, including our nightmare. Their conversation made Yilin unintentionally recall the fear of being tossed and tortured by Green in the nightmare, and she trembled subconsciously, feeling a little painful. When Green heard this, he was so happy that he couldn't even look at it. He took out the calculator and clicked it again. Finally he was satisfied. This is pretty much it. They've obviously come to an agreement. Yilin was silent. Green saw Yilin's thoughts and chuckled, don't be unhappy, you can't change the outcome. It's better to take this rare opportunity to observe the power between me and her up close. After saying that, Green raised her wings, and a highly condensed nightmare throne rotated on the tips of her wings. Aside. Xiao also raised her index finger, and on her fingertips, an exquisite throne appeared. The throne was like a pure gemstone, reflecting colorful light. This is my missing. Many years ago, when Yilin was still Lin Yi, Green once said to Yilin, the throne is authority. They showed their respective thrones. Nightmare. Miss. After being silent for a full 5 minutes, Yilin breathed a sigh of relief, feeling helpless and relieved. What can I do? Show your stuff, Green said. When Yilin heard this, he was stunned for a moment, then he raised his index finger when he understood. Then, illusory streams of light intertwined at his fingertips, and the miniature model of the infinite throne quickly rotated at his fingertips. Compared with Nightmare and Missing, Yilin's throne has not yet been completely formed. There are visible gaps in the pixels, and it is just a crude prototype. But compared to when Green first met him, the streamer on the throne looked a lot more focused and had more shape. Let's enjoy this process. 3 completely different thrones, Infinity, Nightmare, and Missing, are close to each other among Yilin, Xiao, and Green. The 3 thrones separated strands of data flow from each other, intertwining themselves in a form that Yilin could not understand at the moment. Docking. In an instant, Longing and Nightmare, 2 pure concepts, were loaded into Yilin's cognition in their original form. Miraculous changes occurred on Yilin's infinite throne. Half of it gradually crystallized like pure crystal. The other half was like a red liquid flowing slowly, and the shape of a ghost could be vaguely discerned inside. He touched the reason between Green and Xiao Wu. Suddenly, Yilin woke up. This act of showing the throne is actually a double-edged sword. He showed his power in front of others. While entangled with Green and Xiao's power, he vaguely touched their reason. But if he was too weak, like now, he would almost become them. In the shape of the infinite throne, Yilin had the illusion that they were holding his own handle cup at the same time. Of course, the throne is his own after all, and he can polish it again afterwards and turn their erosion into his own infinity. But if he encounters an uneasy and well-intentioned boss, this kind of behavior is tantamount to self-destruction. In this regard, Yilin secretly kept an eye on it. Yilin reasonably speculated, by the way, whether the battles between gods always started with lighting the throne. You shine, I shine, everyone shines together. Imagining a group of lofty gods spinning a stool on their fingertips, Yilin grimaced and tried to look calm. However, this intention did not last long before Green saw through it. She said, "You think too much about Anthracene, and only your infinity can accommodate my nightmare and her longing at the same time. Why? Maybe this is your infinity." Green meant something, but she changed the subject at the speed of light. "Here, give me your hand." Yilin. "Reach out," Bat said with a straight face. Yilin stretched. Green suddenly grabbed Yilin's hand and pressed it on Xiaowu's chest. "Xiaowu, hey." Green moved so fast that Yilin had no time to react. The next second, Yilin was surprised to find that he had pressed a hole in Xiao's soft chest. There was a halo of light around the hole, and Green was using Yilin's hand to insert it into Xiaowu's chest. "Green, don't be nervous, this is a process." Xiao lowered his head and let out another cry. At this moment, a dark shadow appeared behind Xiaowu. Thick as paint, dark as ink. After a moment of distortion, the shadow turned into another Xiaowu. She had dark eyes, long straight black hair, and was wearing a dark dress. Standing next to Xiaowu, they looked like a pair of black and white twin Oreo biscuits. Because Yilin had the experience of artifacts, everything that happened before her eyes was horrifying, but it was not incomprehensible. In Yilin's view, Black Xiao should be the nightmare hidden in Xiao's body. Green used this method to divide Black Xiao and Bai Xiao into two. Xiaowu and Green took Yilin and flew to the sky of eternal night. "This world has been destroyed and there will be no daylight." Xiao turned around and looked at He Xiao, who was still on the ground, his eyes as cold as ghosts. She turned her head with lingering fear and said to Green, "Sir, I'm begging you. This is a deal." Green looked down at the black little crow on the ground greedily, wishing to swallow her in one bite. But Green is a bat with taste, and when she eats she likes presentation, dipping, and nightmare sandwich pancakes. This voracious way of devouring food will obviously lower her level of prowess. Green looked away, suppressed his eating instinct, and poked Yilin with his wings. "Let's start." "Xiao, let's start." Yilin now still has one hand inside Xiao's body, performing Link in a strange way. He pointed at himself, "Me. Otherwise, stop inking and hurry up." Green impatiently slapped Yilin on the face with his wings. "If you don't hurry up, the taste will not be pure. You actually care about the purity of the nightmare dessert." Green's actions suddenly refreshed the lower limit and limit of the master. Under the urging of Xiaowu and Green, Yilin's hand dug inside Xiaowu's body. The beautiful new world unfolded in front of Yilin. At this moment, he could not describe his feelings in words. He felt that the world was ethereal, and every move and thought he made seemed to be able to change the world in front of him. Each puppet rotates around Xiao in the form of light points. Understanding is the basis for gathering authority. At this moment, Yilin is understanding missing, nightmare, and the composition of this ship. Yilin's eyes were empty and lifeless, seemingly without focus, but the focus of his sight actually went to another incredible place, entering Xiaowu's operation mode. God said. Yilin pressed the thumb and index finger of her right hand on the panel, and then on the territory that represented the sky, she used her thumb and index finger to pull it apart. The touch screen is convenient. There must be clouds.